The sun had barely risen when Michael Turner, a 39-year-old defense attorney with a reputation for being both stubborn and sincere, rolled out of bed in his small suburban home outside Charleston. The November air held that crisp bite of pre-winter cold, a reminder that the holiday season was approaching, bringing with it all the emotional complexities that families quietly carry. His wife, Caroline, was already downstairs, her soft humming floating up to the old wooden staircase. She hummed old gospel tunes, something she'd inherited from her grandmother who used to cook Sunday breakfasts while singing hymns. This home, though modest, held the kind of warmth that didn't come from insulation or heating vents, but from shared history. Michael inhaled deeply. Court day, and not just any court day. Judge Pierce's courtroom, the one place every attorney in Charleston dreaded stepping into unprepared. He dressed in the usual charcoal suit, tugged on his tie, and glanced in the mirror. His eyes looked different, tired but sharper, like a man walking into a fight he didn't choose but had no intention of losing. Downstairs, Caroline set 2 plates on the table, scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, and a small bowl of grits. "You didn't have to cook," Michael said, kissing her forehead as he sat. "You always say that," she teased, "and I always cook anyway. Consider it my way of keeping your soul intact before you step into that courthouse." He smiled but didn't answer. His thoughts were tied to the riverfront development scandal, the case that had stirred the entire city, the one that involved local officials, business owners, and a trail of bribes that someone desperately wanted buried. Caroline noticed his silence. "Bad feeling. Not a bad one," he replied. "Just something's off. Pierce called for an unscheduled hearing. That never means anything good." She squeezed his hand gently, the kind of touch that said, "I believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself. Remember what you always tell your clients," she said. "Stand your ground. Truth might get bruised, but it doesn't die." He chuckled. "I say that all the time, usually with coffee in hand." He kissed her once more, grabbed his worn-out briefcase, still housing the college debate team sticker he'd kept on for luck, and headed out into the chilly Charleston morning. The Charleston District Courthouse sat like an old monument, brick facade, tall columns, and a flag waving sharply in the morning breeze. Locals often described it as a building where justice enters hopeful and leaves exhausted. Michael pushed to the front doors, nodding to the officers at security. Most knew him. Charleston wasn't a massive city, and the legal community was tightly knit. When he reached the 3rd floor, he spotted Sarah Delgado, the young paralegal who'd been helping him dig through public records. She hurried toward him, clutching a thick folder. "Mike, something's wrong," she whispered. "What happened?" "It's Pierce. He filed an order late last night, sealed. He's trying to suppress all financial records from the Riverfront project." Michael froze. That meant the judge was intentionally blocking evidence, something no ethical judge should ever do. "Do you have a copy?" She nodded and slipped the folder into his hands. "Be careful. He's angry this morning. Like, more than usual." Michael thanked her and walked into courtroom 4, just as Judge Robert Pierce entered, a tall, commanding man whose gray hair and polished glasses gave him an image of authority that he wielded like a weapon. The courtroom quieted. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Everyone stood. Pierce sat, adjusted his robe, and glared across the room like a king examining the peasants. "You may sit." The lawyers settled. "Mr. Turner," Pierce said without preamble, "you filed a motion to introduce financial ledgers that, according to my chambers, were obtained improperly." Michael blinked. "Respectfully, Your Honor, these documents were acquired through legal channels, public records requests, property tax filings, and business registries, all accessible under state law." Pierce's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting my chambers are incorrect?" "I'm suggesting," Michael replied steadily, "that the law allows me to present this evidence." The room grew tighter. Jurors shifted. Even opposing counsel Mitchell Cowell, known for exploiting loopholes, leaned back with a sly smile, like he already knew something Michael didn't. Pierce slammed his gavel. "Mr. Turner, your attitude is unacceptable." Michael stayed perfectly still. "With respect, I'm only advocating for my client's right to a fair trial." Pierce's face hardened. Something boiled beneath his calm exterior: anger, fear, or desperation. And Michael could practically feel the political strings being tugged somewhere behind the scenes. "That evidence is hereby barred," Pierce said, "and your motion is denied." Michael stood. "Your Honor—" "Sit down, Mr. Turner," the judge snapped. But Michael didn't, because something was wrong, deeply wrong. The documents he carried showed a direct money trail between the riverfront developers and 3 elected officials. If this was suppressed, corruption would win, and the people of Charleston would pay the price for generations. "Your Honor," he said calmly, "the public has a right to truth. If the evidence is legitimate—" "That's it," Pierce shouted, rising from the bench. "Bailiff, detain Mr. Turner for contempt of court." Gasps erupted. Sarah looked horrified. Mitchell Cowell smirked. The bailiff hesitated. He knew Michael, respected him, but a judge's order is a judge's order. "Your Honor, this is unconstitutional," Michael said, voice low but steady. "You're silencing a defense attorney for doing his job." Pierce pointed angrily. "Arrest him." And the bailiff stepped forward, only for the courtroom doors to suddenly swing open. A tall woman with auburn hair strode inside, her heels clicking sharply across the marble floor. She wore a navy suit, her badge glinting at her hip. It was Assistant U.S. Attorney Rebecca Hale. "Judge Pierce," she said, her voice cutting to the tension like a blade. "Stand down." Immediately, Pierce's jaw dropped. "This is my courtroom. You do not storm in here, and—" "I do," she interrupted, handing a document to the bailiff. When federal law is being violated, the courtroom was frozen in shock. Rebecca turned to Michael. "Mr. Turner, are you being detained for attempting to present publicly obtained evidence?" "Yes," he replied, still stunned. "And he has sealed financial records related to an ongoing corruption investigation." Murmurs rippled across the room. Pierce slammed his gavel again. "You have no authority." "I have full authority," Rebecca said firmly. "The Department of Justice has opened a federal inquiry into your conduct, Judge Pierce. Effective immediately, you are ordered to recuse yourself from this case." A wave of shock swept through the room. Sarah gasped. Mitchell Cowell's smirk collapsed, and the bailiff slowly stepped away from Michael. Pierce's hands trembled. This is an outrage." Rebecca leaned forward, her voice low but resolute. "No, Judge. What's outrageous is interfering in a corruption case, suppressing evidence, and attempting to arrest an attorney who was following the law." Michael watched as something in Pierce's face cracked. Fear? Guilt? Or the realization that his power had a limit after all? Rebecca continued. "Security will escort you from the building. You are to surrender all case files to federal investigators." The courtroom erupted. Journalists dashed out the doors. Attorneys whispered furiously. Pierce, red-faced and shaking, growled, "This isn't over." Rebecca didn't even blink. "You're right. It's just beginning." The bailiff, looking reluctantly triumphant, guided the judge away as gasps and murmurs spread to the spectators. Michael exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The courtroom emptied slowly. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Rebecca gathered her documents. Michael stood silently, absorbing what had just happened. "You all right?" she asked. "I should be asking you that," Michael replied. She smiled faintly. "I've dealt with worse." Federal corruption cases tend to attract passionate reactions. Sarah rushed over, hugging Michael tightly. "You scared me. I thought he was actually going to have you arrested." "So did I," he admitted. Rebecca crossed her arms. "You did the right thing. Many attorneys would have backed down to protect themselves. Maybe I'm stubborn. Or maybe," she said, "you actually care about the people affected by this project." He did. That was the truth. He'd grown up in this city. He knew what overdevelopment did to local communities. The displacement, the rising rents, the erosion of history. Rebecca gathered her briefcase. "We'll talk soon, Mr. Turner. I need to go prepare statements for the press." "And you," she smirked, "should probably go home before your wife thinks you actually got locked up." Michael laughed softly. "She already warned me about today." "Smart woman," Rebecca said. "Hold on to her." She left the courtroom with confidence, like someone who knew justice wasn't always pretty, but was worth fighting for. Michael grabbed his coat, thanked Sarah again, and stepped outside into the cold Charleston air. He didn't feel victorious. He felt relieved, exhausted, angry, hopeful, all at once. Caroline sat on the couch, scrolling nervously through her phone, when she heard the front door open. She looked up quickly. "You're home late," she breathed, standing. "How did—" Michael didn't answer. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, forehead pressed to hers. "That bad," she whispered. "Worse. But it ended better than it started." He explained everything. The hearing, the sealed records, the arrest order, the federal intervention. Caroline listened, her hand never leaving his. When he finished, she exhaled slowly. "I knew Pierce was ruthless. But this—" "I almost spent the night in jail," Michael said, rubbing his temples. She guided him to the couch. "Sit. Breathe. Dinner's almost ready." He gave her a tired smile. "You're too good for me." "I know," she teased. "But you're stuck with me anyway." They sat together while the aroma of baked chicken and rosemary filled the room. Simple comfort food, the kind that made a house feel like home. The TV in the corner played the local news, and suddenly, breaking news. Federal agents removed Judge Pierce from courtroom in corruption probe. Michael and Caroline exchanged stunned looks. "Guess the whole city knows now," he muttered. Caroline squeezed his hand. "You did the right thing, Mike, even if it scared the life out of me." He leaned his head on her shoulder. "I'm not sure what happens next." She kissed his temple gently. "Then we'll face it together." And for the first time that day, Michael felt something warm, steady, and healing settle inside him. Hope.